France, 1589. A queen mother, one of the most powerful women in Europe, takes her final breath. That same year, far from the French court, a girl is born. She will rise to become the most legendary sultana of the Ottoman Empire. Their lives never crossed, yet their destinies are eerily alike. Two women shaped by power, fate, and a trail of mystical coincidences. This is the story of Catherine de' Medici and Kösem Sultan, two matriarchs who ruled from behind the throne. Welcome back to Female Tales. I'm Yulia, and together on this channel, we explore the stories of remarkable women from history. If history speaks to you, like the video, join our community, and let's head straight into the depths of the past. It would be hard to find two women with more contrasting beginnings, and yet, their stories remind us that fate is not always dictated by birth, that origin alone does not define a destiny. As I mentioned in my video about Catherine de' Medici, she was born into one of the wealthiest families in Italy. The Medici, merchant bankers who rose to power and transformed themselves into nobility. Kösem Sultan's early life, by contrast, is wrapped in mystery. We don't even know her birth name. The name Kösem was given to her later, after she entered the Ottoman harem. She may have come from Bosnia or Greece, possibly the daughter of a priest, and may have been named Anastasia. Yet, by a strange twist of history, both girls, just 14 years old, found themselves swept into the world of power and politics far beyond their years. At 14, Catherine married the youngest son of the King of France, the future Henry II. Kösem, at that same age, arrived at the harem of Sultan Ahmed I not as a bride, but as a slave. At first, she was called Mapika, meaning moon-shaped. But after she rose swiftly to the position of Haseki, the Sultan's favoured consort, she was given the name under which she would be remembered: Kösem. The name itself carries an odd duality. One meaning is leader of the herd, a fitting title for someone who would go on to wield immense influence. The other meaning is more peculiar: hairless, referring to her smooth skin. Do we know for certain what Kösem looked like? Not really. As you might remember from my video on harem, artists were forbidden from entering the harem, so there are no portraits from life. Still, we're fortunate to have written descriptions, thanks to the ever-watchful Venetian envoys. Simon Contarini described her as a woman of beauty and shrewdness, and furthermore, of many talents. She sings excellently, whence she continues to be extremely well-loved by the king. Not that she is respected by all, but she is listened to in some matters and is the favourite of the king, who wants her beside him continually. Meanwhile, the English traveller George Sandys called her a witch beyond beauty, and described her as a delicate and at the same time shy nature. While beauty is a subjective matter, and the young Catherine de' Medici was not considered beautiful, though many noted her poise and ability to present herself with dignity. There is one quality both of these young women possessed without question: intelligence. Without it, it's hard to imagine either of them surviving, let alone rising in the worlds they were thrown into. Worlds filled with intrigue, rivalry, and constant power struggles. As a young girl, Catherine had to fight for her marriage and her place at court. After the death of her powerful relative, Pope Clement VII, she essentially lost her political value to the French crown. Even her dowry was never paid, putting her in an extremely humiliating position. But she managed to win the king's favour with her tears and persuasion, and remained at court. Not long after, Catherine's husband's older brother died under suspicious circumstances, and once again, all eyes turned to her. After all, this death brought her and her husband one step closer to the throne. Though the shadow of that death would linger over her reputation, Catherine became Dauphine of France at the age of 17. Kösem, in her turn, dared to challenge Sophia Sultan, once a powerful figure and the grandmother of Sultan Ahmed. Sophia was ultimately exiled to the Old Palace, and by the age of 16, Kösem had already reached the pinnacle of the harem's internal hierarchy. Both young women had to fight not only for position and influence within palace structures, but also for power, in the arena of love. Catherine faced just one main rival, Diane de Poitiers. But Kösem, as you'll recall, was in a harem, a world where competition was built into the very architecture of daily life. Her greatest rival became Mahfiruz Hatun, a concubine who gave birth to Sultan Ahmed's son, Osman, a boy who would later play a tragic role in Kösem's life. Whether you were a French dauphin or a Haseki in the Ottoman harem, the core expectation for a woman of that era remained the same: to bear children. Motherhood was the most direct and often the only path to lasting influence. And both of our heroines became mothers, not just once, but many times. In Catherine de' Medici's case, it took her 10 long years to conceive, but in the end, she gave birth to 10 children, 4 of them sons. 3 of those sons would go on to wear the crown of France. Kösem Sultan bore 5 sons to Sultan Ahmed I, 2 of whom would become sultans themselves, and 3 daughters. There may have been other children as well, but due to high infant mortality and the secrecy that surrounded life in the harem, the records vary. And perhaps, had things gone differently, both women might have been remembered only as what we now see so often in social media bios: happy wives and mothers of little angels. But the early and tragic deaths of their husbands changed everything, not just their personal destinies, but the very course of history. King Henry II died suddenly at the age of 40 after a brutal injury during a jousting tournament. A lance pierced his eye and he suffered in agony for 10 days before succumbing to his wounds. He left France in the hands of his and Catherine's son, the sickly young Francis II. Sultan Ahmed I died even younger, at just 27, most likely from a stomach illness, leaving Kösem a widow at 28. His death marked the beginning of a bloody power struggle over the Ottoman throne. And so, both women found themselves almost overnight transformed, not just widows, but mothers whose sons stood, or would soon stand, at the helm of empires. And with that came a new role: protectors of dynasties and key players in the fate of their nations. For Catherine, this meant confronting the powerful House of Guise, who seized control of her son, the young king, and his wife Mary, Queen of Scots. Acting in their names, the Guises launched a ruthless campaign of persecution against the Protestants, one that Catherine would be forced to navigate, both politically and personally. Kösem, quite literally, had to fight for the lives of her children. According to a brutal Ottoman tradition, once a Shehzadeh became sultan, he would typically order the execution of his brothers, a way to eliminate future rivals to the throne. But the young Ahmed I, only 13 when he took power, chose to break with that custom. He spared the life of his younger brother Mustafa. Ahmed had witnessed firsthand how his own father, Mehmed III, executed 19 of his brothers. He wanted no part in repeating that bloodshed, but that mercy would later come back to haunt his own children. For the first time in Ottoman history, there was now a dangerous precedent. The throne could be claimed not only by the sons of a sultan, but also by his surviving brother, in this case, Mustafa, who had spent most of his life in confinement, and whose mental health had deteriorated as a result. He had been kept in what was called the cafes, or the cage, a secluded section of the palace, where male relatives of the Sultan were imprisoned to prevent power struggles. At the time, Kösem may have found it convenient to support Mustafa's accession. She feared that young Osman, Ahmed's son by another woman, might execute his half-brothers, her sons, upon becoming sultan. Through an alliance with Mustafa's mother, Kösem could maintain some level of influence behind the scenes. But events quickly spiraled beyond her control. Just 96 days after taking the throne, Osman deposed his uncle and declared himself sultan. Unaware of the fate that awaited him, Osman lacked something critical: a Valide Sultan, a queen mother figure, to guide and protect him. Instead of building an alliance with Kösem, his stepmother, Osman banished her to the old palace and soon ordered the execution of his half-brother, Shehzadeh Mehmed, Kösem's eldest son, just 12 years old at the time. With that, Kösem lost her firstborn. And Osman, due to his inexperienced leadership and a string of political miscalculations, would soon become the first sultan in Ottoman history to be killed by his own army. Amid the chaos that followed, the mentally unstable Mustafa became sultan for the second time. After Osman's uprising, everyone at court understood that Kösem's sons posed a danger to the throne. Mustafa's closest advisors began plotting to have them executed. So Kösem acted. In a carefully orchestrated move with the support of the palace eunuchs, she deposed Mustafa and placed her own son, 11-year-old Murat, on the throne. Catherine, too, lost her firstborn son, just 17 months after Francis ascended the throne. He died of an ear abscess, leaving the young Mary a widow and the French crown to his 10-year-old brother, Charles IX. Fearing conspiracies, Catherine kept Charles constantly by her side, at times even sharing his bedroom to ensure his safety. And just like that, both sons of our two mothers were too young to rule. And so, both women effectively became the true rulers of their countries, stepping into power as regents. Catherine de' Medici received the official title Gouvernante de France, while Kösem became the first woman in Ottoman history to hold the title Naib al-Sultanat, Deputy of the Sultanate. Though their formal regencies were meant to last only until their sons came of age, in practice, both women wielded influence for over a quarter of a century. Kösem focused on restoring the empire's economic stability. She managed to build a working relationship with the Janissaries, the same dangerous military elite that had overthrown Osman. She fortified key positions at the mouth of the Bosphorus and took an active role in the lives of ordinary people, donating generously to the construction of new mosques, fountains, and public kitchens, and giving dowries to orphaned girls when they married. Catherine de' Medici, for her part, became a major patron of the arts and architecture. She launched a cultural program that lasted 3 decades and commissioned the construction of several royal palaces in Paris. Under her rule, France introduced standardized weights and measures and abolished internal tariffs between regions, encouraging freer trade. But both women also faced political turmoil and made decisions that left lasting marks on their reputations. Catherine underestimated the depth of France's religious conflict, and although she spent most of her regency trying to ease religious tensions, as a woman unusually open-minded for her time, history remembers her above all for the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, when some 10,000 Huguenots were slaughtered in the streets of Paris. Kösem, meanwhile, faced the loss of key territories and a wave of rebellions in the provinces, failures that her critics would later point to as proof of the so-called weakness of the women's sultanate. Both women also sought to strengthen their families' political influence through dynastic marriages. Catherine de' Medici even tried to arrange a marriage between her son and Queen Elizabeth I, a bold, diplomatic move that unsurprisingly came to nothing. But when it came to marriages of convenience, daughters were often their most valuable assets. Take, for instance, Catherine's daughter, Marguerite de Valois, who was married off to Henry of Navarre, a Protestant. This marriage was meant to symbolize reconciliation between Catholics and Protestants. But Margot, it seems, may have been in love with Henry of Guise. When rumors of their relationship reached Catherine, she allegedly beat her daughter and ripped out clumps of her hair. Trapped in an unhappy marriage, Marguerite took several lovers, and for this, Catherine disowned her. She was cut out of the inheritance and never saw her mother again. The fate of Kösem Sultan's daughters was not much better. Fatma Sultan and Ayşe Sultan were each married 7 times, not for love, but to secure political alliances. By yet another strange twist of fate, the second sons of both women were also denied long reigns. Neither ruled for many years, and both died young. Charles IX succumbed to tuberculosis at just 23, leaving behind no male heirs. Murad IV, despite reportedly fathering 35 children, died at the age of 28 from liver cirrhosis. And by the time of his death, none of his sons had survived. During his reign, Murad had executed 2 of Kösem's other sons, Qasim and Suleiman, as well as 1 half-brother, sparing only his mentally unstable brother, Ibrahim, whose life Kösem herself had begged the Sultan to spare. And in this, we see yet another eerie parallel. Catherine de' Medici once confided, I have a lunatic for a son. After the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, Charles IX fell into psychological instability, his mind deteriorating under the weight of guilt and violence. Similarly, Ibrahim, later known to history as Ibrahim the Mad, suffered from terrifying mood swings and headaches that unsettled even his mother. Having spent nearly his entire life imprisoned in the cage, awaiting execution, when his time came to assume the throne, he was convinced it was all a trick to kill him. He barricaded himself in his chambers, refusing to come out until he was shown his brother Murad's dead body. Ibrahim had no desire to rule, but once convinced of his new status, he immersed himself fully in the pleasures of power. He spent nearly all his time in the harem, developing a particular obsession with women of large size, and spent staggering amounts of money on his concubines. For one of his favourites, he even ordered an entire palace to be lined with animal furs as a gift. During this time, Kösem continued to govern in his name, managing political affairs behind the scenes. But Ibrahim's extravagant and erratic behaviour led to growing discontent and a crippling deficit in the treasury. Eventually, his concubines gained such influence that Kösem was pushed out of power and banished from the harem. Catherine's third son, and her favourite, Henry III, also proved to be a distant and ineffective ruler, more drawn to solitude than statecraft. His attempts to resolve France's religious divisions were largely unsuccessful. Still, Catherine did everything she could to support the son she loved. At 59, she undertook an 18-month journey through southern France to meet face-to-face with Huguenot leaders. But this had little effect. Her son soon found himself at war not only with the Protestants, but with the newly formed Catholic League as well. "I see him rushing towards his end," Catherine would later say, and yet she could no longer influence his decisions. Around the same time, her fourth son, François, Duke of Anjou, also died. With Henry III childless, the future of the Valois dynasty was suddenly in question. In the end, both women had to watch as their own sons slowly dismantled everything they had spent their lives building. Catherine still tried to save her son, writing to him in desperation. "Take care," she pleaded, "especially about your person. There is so much treachery about that I die of fear." Kösem, on the other hand, made a far more radical choice. The son she had protected for so long was now leading the empire toward collapse. When the Janissaries rose in revolt, she said, "In the end, he will leave neither you nor me alive. We will lose control of the government. The whole society is in ruins. Have him removed from the throne immediately." And so she watched from her window as her son was strangled, sacrificed for the sake of survival. She then became regent once again, this time for her grandson, the son of Ibrahim, bearing the new title, grandmother of the Sultan. But the power she had fought for, and for which she had sacrificed her last son, was already slipping through her hands. It was now shifting to her daughter-in-law, Turhan Sultan, the mother of the new sultan. Fearing that Kösem planned to replace her son with a more compliant grandson and daughter-in-law, Turhan decided to strike first. One night, a large group of eunuchs stormed Kösem's chambers. She tried to hide, gathering her jewels and seeking refuge. They attempted to strangle her, and she lost consciousness. Believing her dead, the assassins left. But she awoke and tried once more to escape. They caught her again. This time she resisted fiercely, but they completed the execution. One chronicler wrote that she was strangled with her own hair. Catherine's death was far less brutal. She died at the age of 69 from pleurisy. As one contemporary observed, those close to her believed that her life had been shortened by displeasure over her son's deeds. And yet, what united these women, even in death, was that after decades of holding power, their final moments passed without triumph or glory. Kösem was buried the very next day, laid to rest beside her husband. News of the Sultana's death spread quickly, and all of Istanbul was in uproar. The people observed a spontaneous 3-day mourning period. City markets and mosques closed their doors. To the common people, she was known as the senior mother of the believers. Catherine de' Medici, on the other hand, was not given a final resting place in Paris, the very city to which she had dedicated so much of her life. By the time of her death, it had been taken over by supporters of the House of Guise, and so she was buried in a temporary grave. As the chronicler L'Estoile wrote, no sooner died than she was treated with as much consideration as a dead goat. Reflecting on the legacy of Catherine de' Medici and Kösem Sultan, one thing becomes clear. Neither of these women were saints. They both rose to power in times of profound instability. Not every decision they made was wise, and the methods they used to fight for power and preserve their dynasties were not always noble. But if they had been men, would anyone have judged them for it? As Henry IV of France, who came to the throne after the death of Catherine's last son and the end of the Valois dynasty, once said, "I ask you, what could a woman do, left by the death of her husband with 5 little children on her arms and 2 families of France who were thinking of grasping the crown? Was she not compelled to play strange parts, to deceive first one and then the other, in order to guard, as she did, her sons, who successively reigned through the wise conduct of that shrewd woman? I am surprised that she never did worse." So how should we remember these women? Were they ruthless manipulators? Or simply survivors, doing what they had to do in a world ruled by men? History rarely offers easy answers. Let's talk about it in the comments. And I'll see you soon in the next video.